So, look, I'm somebody who really stands for all of us having our capacity to share to know that we're heard and that what we do and what we are matters. And I've been that for my whole life. I can't remember a time where I wasn't that. In fact, my family tells me I was born into that. And like upon arrival, hit the time clock. I had two older brothers, 10 and 14 years older than me. And, and my parents, and they were doing whatever teenagers and parents do when I arrived. And my job was to bring joy and peace and communication to a family that was in a fair amount of chaos and disarray. So I've always been a proponent. I've always been enchanted with the whole idea of self expression. And given that I was the third boy, it was my job, at least how I saw it, to eventually grow up to be accepted as a boy by my brothers. So the way to do that was to be a spectacular speaker. And they had given me all the tools I needed. They precociously, taught me about sex and drugs and rock and roll long before I even entered elementary school. So when I arrived in elementary school, I knew how to read, I knew how to do some math, I knew about a little bit about those issues I just said, and way more than the average kindergartner for sure. And I was ahead of the pack, and I was a speaker, and I really knew, I talked a lot in school. And there's no elementary school teacher who forgot having Fred as a student. I'm pretty positive about that. And, I was really smart though. And so I would get all A's except in like conduct. And then I would get a U and I had years and years of that. And the whole idea was learning how to communicate effectively. That's what I wanted. And I was unstoppable as a speaker until I really learned that I wasn't going to learn how to speak in school. So, and neither were the kids that were being shut down. And I became a proponent for them and I to actually speak and be understood for who we are and who we aren't. And I did this as early as elementary school and then later on in junior high and high school, really being someone who felt like people needed to communicate. We weren't learning how to communicate in school. We were learning how to sit down and shut up and regurgitate what the teacher was doing in order to pass grades. But after school or between classes or, when I was not in school, that's where I was learning how to communicate. And eventually really got to the point where I could see that you could communicate without even using words. That you could communicate through art, through music, through dancing, through singing, through drama and cooking, all the creative things that we do.